All right, welcome to the Detroit Lions News Podcast. I'm your host, Joe Chapp. We are not live today because, well, reasons. Not feeling that well. But it's okay. We're gonna power through this podcast because, in my opinion, like this may be just my opinion. And you guys can let me know in the comments and in reviews and all that jazz. But this game seems like a very, very fun game uh to watch in terms of the way these two teams play. Because when you think these are two of the top 10 scoring offenses in the NFL. The Chiefs are 10th, the Detroit Lions are first, okay? Points against, they're nearly identical. The Detroit Lions are 15th, the Chiefs are 17th. Um the the offense that the Chiefs have is really good. There's no ifs, ands, or buts. And they have a potential to go 2-4 to start the season if they lose to Detroit. And I feel like Detroit coming in to Kansas City is something that's going to get them hyped up. Kansas City, I meaning, they're going to be very hyped up to play this game, and especially since the last time that you went to Kansas City and you beat them on their Super Bowl ring banner raising night, they're going to be ready to go. Obviously, Dan Campbell knows that. Okay, he's not going in there like, "Oh, guys, we beat them last time. We can beat them again." I'm sure he's saying that, but he's saying you guys better be ready for a fight because they are totally going to be fighting you the whole 9 yards. And just the way this game sets up in terms of how this game sets up. Last year was fun, right? Last year was a little bit of fun, but playing the Tennessee Titans is not fun. Playing the Jacksonville Jaguars is not fun. Playing the Colts this year kind of would have been fun, but we didn't play the Colts last. We played them last year. Um, all those blowout games that we had, I would rather be playing the best of the best, and the Kansas City Chiefs are the best of the best. And the matchups are in this game are unbelievable. We're going to talk about that next, but just this game in its conjunction. Like I cannot tell you the matchups that are just appetizing. I cannot tell you about the differences in these two teams. Like think about it like this. You have a quarterback in Patrick Mahomes who is not that great with pressure. Regardless of how we feel about Patrick Mahomes is not that great with pressure. Matter of fact, he's literally tied with Jared Goff in some of the pressure ranks and how he does against pressure, and that shows you everything. There's a lot of great stats and info on this game. Like one of the stats that I was looking at before I came on the podcast was this statistic right here, and I think this is a very key statistic here. Kirby Joseph has been targeted on just 8 of his 167 coverage snaps, 4.8 percent. That's the lowest this season, the lowest target rate among all Lions defenders with at least 10 coverage snaps. He's allowed just 0.2 yards per coverage snap, the seventh fewest among safeties with 100 plus coverage snaps. Joseph is also tied for the second most interceptions this season. So, you look at that, and then you look at this one. Amon-Ra St. Brown is the fourth player in the last 4 years to lead the NFL in receiving touchdowns while playing for the NFL's number one scoring offense. So, and then, the three others were Devontae Adams, Randy Moss in 98 and 2007, and Jerry Rice in 1987, 89, and 93. And the one stat that I was looking at that I was kind of like, wow, this is interesting. Patrick Mahomes leads the Chiefs with 190 rushing yards in 2025, the most rush yards he's had through 5 games in his career. Mahomes is one of 2 QBs who are leading their team in rush yards in 2025. The other is Kyler Murray. I don't think that's successful in the long term, but Patrick Mahomes is going to do what Patrick Mahomes has to do to win football games. So that is the most important spot about that. Now, as we talk about the Detroit Lions, there is some news and notes that I want to get to in terms of the news of the day. If you haven't been paying attention, the injury report went like this for the Detroit Lions and the Chiefs. For the Detroit Lions, Terron Arnold did not practice. Zach Cunningham did not practice. Taylor Decker did not practice. Kirby Joseph did not practice. Vaki did not practice. Brian Branch was limited with an ankle injury. Dave Burkett of the Free Press is reporting that he is going to get an MRI on his ankle, and that could be a huge altering thing for this defense because not only are you missing DJ Reed, but you're going to be missing Terrion Arnold. You cannot afford to miss a guy like Brian Branch. That's just the way it goes. Cleve Raymond was limited. Giovanni Manu was limited with a knee injury. Avonte Maddox popped up on the injury report, and this is another one. He might be a depth corner, but you've lost two corners for an extended period of time, so you really can't lose more secondary pieces. So Avonte Maddox being injured is a little bit of a scare, to be honest. Ali McNeil was a full practice, and so was St. Brown. And when St. Brown was asked if he was okay, he said he just needed to rest because he had some injuries that he was trying to get through, and he just needed a day of rest. And basically, I equate that to catching so many goddamn balls and being so good at catching those balls that you just say, screw it, let me have a Thursday off. That's probably what St. Brown, Wednesday off. So I think that's what St. Brown was trying to get to. But when we look at this game for the Chiefs, I mean, there's a critical injury that they have. Only one player did not practice. That was Xavier Worthy, the wide receiver. He did not practice, but there was a bunch of guys that are full practices but on the injury report regardless. Jeffrey Bassa, knee, full. Nick Bolton, their linebacker. Marquise Brown, Christian Fulton, Kareem Hunt, Patrick Mahomes, Omar Norman Lott, Charles Onwenu, Juju Smith-Schuster, and Jawan Taylor were all full practices. But it's just interesting to note that those are the injuries that are going into this game on Sunday Night Football. So it's going to be very interesting. Obviously, we don't expect Terrion Arnold to play. We'll wait to see if Ali McNeil plays in this game. We'll wait to see if Taylor Decker players, Giovanni Manu not being a little limited in practice does present another problem for Detroit. But this is football, and one thing I can say about Dan Campbell and this team is they will try, and like they did last year, 19 players on IR, and they still got to a 15-2 record. It shows you about the culture that they have in Detroit, where they could just keep trucking along, and they're going, and they're not going to be hit off course with an injury or two. But let's get to the matchups of this game because I got to tell you, the matchups of this game, where is it? So the matchups of this game is crucial. These are the biggest matchups in my opinion. Okay. You got the two quarterbacks going against each other. Now, Jared Goff and Patrick Mahomes have played twice. Patrick Mahomes played Jared Goff once when he was in LA, but these are the statistics against each other. Patrick Mahomes is 0-2 against Jared Goff with 35.5 points per game, 37.5 for Jared Goff. And pass yardage obviously goes to Patrick Mahomes, 352.0, and Jared Goff is 333 yards. Passer rating is 107.5 in favor of Jared Goff compared to Patrick Mahomes' 101.3. And, when we think about this quarterback matchup, when we think about these two quarterbacks, I said to you earlier, I said, these two quarterbacks struggle with pressure, not blitzing, but with pressure. And like any quarterback. And these two quarterbacks identically were like right up against each other. They were right up against each other. I think Jared Goff was ahead of Mahomes, but not by much. And here are Mahomes' stats under pressure. Just so you have them. He has been kept clean 68.8% of the times, 70.5 completion percentage. He's completed 93 out of 132. Under pressure, which is 31.2% of the time. His completion percentage drops to 45.1. His completions are 23 51, 390 yards, and he attempts to go throw the ball deep when he does get pressured. When he's not blitzed, he has a 61.5 completion percentage. When he's blitzed, he has a 66.7 completion percentage. And teams do try to blitz him and try to get at him. But the biggest thing that I could say about this team, about the Detroit Lions, is they're gonna have to get pressure on Patrick Mahomes, and I'm sure that uh, the Kansas City Chiefs are really emphasizing that on their side, because when you look at these two guys, George Karlaftis and Aiden Hutchinson, they both lead the league in pressures. They both have like 31, 32, 33. Like it's insane. So both these guys can present a problem. And George Karlaftis is what I thought he would be at Purdue. I thought he was going to be a really good NFL player, and he gets put on that line with Chris Jones, and they've been a pretty good defense. And when I look at this Kansas City Chiefs team, like um, they're a very interesting team. George Karlaftis has been double teamed. Uh, George Karlaftis has 27 pressures. Chris Jones has 14 pressures. So, look, this is going to be an interesting game from the Detroit Lions perspective. But when you talk about these two quarterbacks, the reason I brought up the defensive ends is because when you think about the quarterback position, right? You're talking about Aiden Hutchinson on the opposite side of Patrick Mahomes. You're talking about George Karlaftis on the opposite side of Jared Goff. Who do you expect to have a better game? Okay. Like the Chiefs' offensive line, in terms of Pro Football Focus, their pass blocking ranks fourth in the NFL, fourth best in the NFL. And when I look at their pressures allowed, Josh Simmons has allowed 12 pressures. Kingsley Suamate has allowed 11% pressures, 97.2% of efficiency. Trey Smith, 97.7 efficiency with 10 pressures. Jawan Taylor has 7 pressures for 98.4 efficiency rating. Creed Humphrey, he's a beast. He's like Frank Ragnow. Uh, 2 pressures all year, 99.5 pressure uh, efficiency rating right there. So um, this game is going to be what quarterback can make the better throws. I think that if I think these two offensive lines, as much as people want to say Detroit has the best offensive line in this matchup, the the way that the Chiefs have played this year, um, their offensive line has been pretty damn good. And I'm surprised that they're 2-4. And when you go through the statistics of how the hell could it be 2-4? Because it doesn't really make much sense. It's not like the Chiefs are turning over the ball at an enormous rate. They're +4 in the turnover differential. Detroit's +6. So there's not much of a difference. Points per game, Detroit has 34. The Chiefs have a top 15 um, points per game with 25.0. So again, you're just by those statistics right there, you're seeing that okay, there's not much. There's a couple games where the Chiefs have lost where they should have perhaps maybe won, right? And I look at their schedule and they lost against the Chargers in Brazil. They played the Eagles. They lost 20-17, which I don't have any faith in the Eagles. They beat the Giants. They beat the Ravens. And then they lost to the Jags. Okay. They're going to be playing the Lions next, which we all know that, obviously. But they're not that far away from their division uh, lead. The Chargers have lost two. The Broncos have lost two. So here's the deal: when you talk about the Kansas City Chiefs and why they're 2-4, you really can't put a real emphasis on why they're 2-4. Patrick Mahomes doesn't turn over the ball a lot. His completion percentage is 63.4, and he's only been sacked 7 times, and he's only been pressured 25.8% of the time. So I like that, but they don't have a run game, and I think that's what's holding them back, to be honest. And Pacheco came back. He's started in 5 games, and he's only averaging 4.2 yards per carry on 39 attempts. So That's someone that they expected to be a lot better. And then obviously they're missing Rashee Rice, the wide receiver, and Tyquan Thornton has been really good for them. And Marquise Brown has been good for him. Travis Kelce has been pretty good for him. But the reality of the situation is they're missing Rashee Rice. They're missing a vertical game. They're missing parts of their game. And you just look at the way this matchup kind of boils down. Like I say it with the utmost confidence, and it's not just throwing a dart at the board, but when you think about the way this matchup goes down with the Lions off, Lions quarterback Jared Goff and that their offense against that defense, I think there's a simple way that the Detroit Lions could really win this game. And I look at the Chiefs and the way that their defense has been against the run. So against the run, this is going to be interesting for them. They are allowing 123 rushing yards per game, which is 12th worst in the NFL. Okay, it is 12th worst in the NFL. Now you win against the second ranked team, you win against the fourth ranked team, you win against the eighth ranked team, and you won all those games. I think this is a very key spot in the game. And I also look at this statistic right here that I have pulled up right here. When you look at reception percentage against, the one issue that the Chiefs defense does have is very simple. Nick Bolton's been targeted 24 times on passes. He's allowed 21 receptions. His reception percentage against is 87.5. And if you want to go who's closest in terms of their corners, Jaden Hicks, Brian Cook, Leo Chanel. But Nick Bolton is the guy that if I'm Jared Goff and I got Sam Laporta one-on-one, I'm throwing it there. If I got Jahmyr Gibbs coming out of the backfield and Nick Bolton is trailing him, I'm going to throw it there. And I think that's where the matchup could really skew in Detroit's favor. Now, the way it could skew in the Chiefs' favor, and this is basically the way it boils down, but the way this could skew in the favor of the Chiefs is I got to go back to the statistic that I was looking at before this whole thing. Now, the Chiefs offense is 26 in quick passing, and short passing they're 25th. But long passing, they are number one in the league. So if there is an opportunity for the Chiefs, if you're a Chiefs fan, you're watching this, you know this better than anybody. But long passing, like a deep pass, the Chiefs are number one per NFL Pro. They are rushing in the red zone. They're number four. Detroit's number 21st. So there is obviously opportunities for the Chiefs to win this game, and there's opportunities for the Chiefs to exploit some weaknesses on the Detroit Lions. And as I look at the passing advantages for the Chiefs offense, deep passing, which I don't know the difference between long passing and deep passing, but one's 1 and one's 10. Passing versus the blitz, the Chiefs are 27th in the league. So the key statistic I read out of here, okay? This is the main statistic that I want you to know about this matchup. Passing versus no blitz. The Chiefs are number one in the league. The Lions defense is number 5. It's not really a big advantage, and there's really no advantage on the Lions side. But when you look at an advantage that the Detroit Lions do have over the Chiefs, like the Chiefs offense, they're passing versus with play action, they're 13th in the league. Okay, the Lions offense is number 1 in the league passing versus passing with play action, and the Chiefs defense is 32nd. So I want you to put this in to think about this. The matchup here is going to be so finite. It's going to be so hard to really gauge who is going to be the better quarterback. And it's going to come down to the little matchups. It's going to come down to, is Nick Bolton trailing Jahmyr Gibbs, and does Jahmyr Gibbs take it to the house? Is he on Sam Laporta, and does he take it to the house? Do the Chiefs connect on a deep pass down on the field with DJ Reed and Terrion Arnold out, and perhaps maybe Brian Branch? We don't know. This is a Thursday podcast. We don't know if Brian Branch is going to be out, but Dave Burkett had a report that he's getting an MRI. So that is concerning to me. But this matchup here is so huge, so critical, and it's going to come down to the little things. And the little things are what's going to win this game. Period. End of story. These teams are very well matched. They're very well. Each team, like the Lions and the Chiefs, they match tit for tat. And the reason I say they match tit for tat is because there's a lot of matchups that are going to be a lot of fun to watch. I think the matchup of Steve Spagnuolo against Jared Goff is going to be fascinating to watch. I think the matchup of Patrick Mahomes versus Calvin Shepard as a defensive coordinator is going to be fascinating to watch. I think that Johnny Morton against Steve Spagnuolo is going to be another fascinating matchup to watch. Andy Reid versus Calvin Shepard, interesting matchup to watch. Aiden Hutchinson on either Josh Simmons or Jawan Taylor. That's going to be an interesting matchup. Is George Karlaftis going to be on Taylor Decker or Gio Manu, or is he going to go to Penei Sewell? That's the matchup to watch. The matchup to watch in the middle of the interior of the offensive line for the Lions, it's Chris Jones. You always think about Chris Jones, big 95. He is a big man, and he could terrorize your whole game plan. And for the Lions, Tyreek Williams has been pretty good batting down balls. DJ Reed can get a push in the pocket. Now, who is Lee McNeil going to come back? That's going to be the interesting matchup here because I look at this game and I'm fascinated at the way this game is going to go. And the way I see it, guys, is this game can go either way. And obviously, the 2.5 point spread that Vegas has put out there, it's not like they're saying this is going to be a knockout drive out. Like they're going to absolutely blow them out the doors. This is going to be a tough game. And I look at this. I look at the grades, like the Pro Football Focus grades, and I look at the Chiefs and Detroit and Kansas City. There's not much far between them. There's really not much far between them. Like I think the farthest that the grades that they have farther than each other is the run blocking grade. But besides that, they've been pretty good. And I like the two quarterbacks in this matchup. I think these are two of the best quarterbacks in the league. And I think Jared Goff's been playing at elite level, an MVP level, and he's going to have a shot to go prove it against Patrick Mahomes, which I'm sure he's up for the challenge. Because when you look at when you look at these two quarterbacks, I'll put up again, they're two of the best quarterbacks in the league right now. I think Patrick Mahomes is not having the greatest year, but I think that it's because of what's happening around him. But you see that the Detroit Lions offense is one of the top offenses in the NFL. So with 174, and it's gonna be a very interesting thing to watch. So the matchups here are gonna be fascinating, and the one matchup that I'm very interested to learn about is, does Steve Spagnuolo blitz against Jared Goff? Is he gonna poke the tiger? Because here's Jared Goff's statistics against the blitz this year: an 82% completion percentage, 410 yards. That's 9.8 yards per attempt, 5 touchdowns, 0 interceptions, and a 143.8 passer rating. You're not going to get much better than that. Like you seriously will not get much better than that. You just won't. You really won't get much better than that. And I think that this is going to be one of the most interesting matchups because Steve Spagnuolo, he blitzes at an enormous pace. He blitzes at a really enormous pace. And for him not to blitz would show a tremendous amount of respect to Jared Goff. I hope they blitz. But you guys look at Steve Spagnuolo. I don't think he's going to poke that pair. When you look at those numbers again, like I said, 82% completion percentage, 410 yards, 5 touchdowns, no interceptions. Like you blitz them, you might as well take your chances and poke the tiger, because it's not going to be this easy game where you're just going to be able to blitz him and he's going to make mistakes. That's not what Jared Goff has been able to do. So that's one of the main matchups that I look at with this game. I think that's going to be a huge matchup. Now, as we look at these two teams, when you look at some of the people on the outside in that are looking at this game and the game preview picks, which NFL.com does it on the YouTube, These were the picks, and there's 3 people picking the Chiefs, and the rest are picking the Lions. And I don't think the Lions are heavy favorites by any stretch of the imagination. They're still underdogs and can't in Las Vegas. But when you think about it like this team, the Detroit Lions, everyone panicked week 1. I think that there was a lot of people that panicked and they were like, "Oh my god, this team is gonna suck." And the Lions have actually turned it around in a big way. You know, beating the Bears by double digits, beating the Browns by double digits, beating the Bengals by double digits, beating the Ravens by 8, which it could have been double digits if the Ravens didn't get that cheap touchdown. But this it's simple. This game is really simple, and it really boils down to these 2 quarterbacks. We talked about the matchup and how it plays out. Obviously, there's different matchups like Carl. All the matchups we listed between the coaches, the tackles, the edge rushers, the defensive tackles, the interior offensive line. This is going to be an amazing game for these 2 teams, and as a football fan as well, because when you get a chance to watch a football game like this, where it's so energizing, it's so good, it's so fun, it's just you're going back and forth, seeing what these 2 teams are going to be able to do. It's going to be very interesting to see what these 2 teams do on Sunday Night Football. And I just look at this game, and when I look at these, ESPN released this graphic. It says best chances at reaching the Super Bowl. You got the Bills at 20%. You got the Lions at 18% over the Eagles, or at 17%. And then you got the Chiefs at number 2 with 15%. So these 2 teams are obviously on a crash course to potentially meet in San Francisco, which would be interesting because that's where the Lions blew that lead in the NFC Championship. But I look at this game, and no matter how you slice it, no matter which way you lean, this is going to be an interesting game. Just from the schematic point alone, like we said, is Spagnuolo going to blitz? How are the Lions going to do this? How are they going to craft their offensive plan? Are they going to run the ball? They think they can run the ball. Are the Chiefs going to do a deep pass, and are they going to connect? Like, there's so many variables to this game. It's going to be such an interesting game to watch. And Lions fans might be put up to a little bit of a choice, because if you're a Lions fan, obviously you might be a Tigers fan, and they might be playing at the ALCS at the same time. So that's going to be very interesting. But it's just, this game is so interesting. Like I said, I've said it a million times. I can't say it enough. Like I previewed this game. Obviously, James isn't on here, but I previewed this game today because this game is so interesting. And I didn't want to bore you with the whole statistic. I didn't want to bore you with all these meaningless talks, but this is going to be a very interesting game. And one of the stats that I do have that I am very interested in is who lines up in the slot. So I'm interested in this because if Brian Branch can't play against the Kansas City Chiefs, who are you going to put in the slot to defend who's in the slot the most? Because at a 43.9% clip, Travis Kelce is in the slot. And if you remember last time, Travis Kelce did not play against the Detroit Lions when they had that Super Bowl banner raising ceremony. And he might be a little older, might be a little slower, but he's a huge threat. He's a huge threat. I don't think that Dan Campbell is scoffing over that. I don't think Calvin Shepard is scoffing over that. And I don't think that the Lions are going to scoff over that. But if you do look at a matchup that could be favorable on the Detroit Lions side, like when we think about the matchups of matchups, I go to the Lions offense. They're number 1 in quick passing. The Chiefs defense is number 7. Intermediate passing, which JMO could really excel in. The Detroit Lions are number 1. The Chiefs defense is number 18. Okay. Passing versus play action. Detroit's offense is number 1. The Chiefs defense is number 2. 32, 32nd. So there's a lot of things to look at. And when I look at the rush game, like this all favors Detroit. The Chiefs cannot stop the run. Let me put this down for you for this key point in this podcast right here. Rushing versus stack box, the Lions are number 1, the Chiefs are number 20. Design runs, Detroit's number 5, the Chiefs are number 25. Overall rushing efficiency, Detroit's number 13, the Chiefs are number 28. They're 28th in the league. Rushing inside the tackles, the Detroit Lions are 7th, the Chiefs are 23rd. Rushing under center, Detroit Lions are 8th, the Chiefs defense is number 26. Rushing outside the tackles, Detroit's number 19th, the Chiefs defense is 26th. And then you look at rushing shotgun, the advantage is in Detroit's favor. So this is going to be a very interesting game from every standpoint of how this thing has been doing good. And I look at this game and it's so fascinating. I cannot say it enough how fascinating this game will be on Sunday Night Football. Now we will update you on the injury report tomorrow in the afternoon. But this game is going to be interesting, and the injury report is going to tell me a lot of which way I'll lean, of who I'm going to pick for this game. Because if there's Lions players that are out that I consider very important, like Brian Branch, we might have a problem. Because you're already missing guys, and Avonte Maddox can't miss time, and all those guys can't miss time. So this will be a very interesting game for the Detroit Lions. And I know a lot of people out there are not taking the Chiefs seriously. I know a lot of people out there, like, they want to see the Chiefs downfall, but you got to remember who is the quarterback of that team. It's Patrick Mahomes. And Patrick Mahomes has been able to do a damn good job at being the quarterback of that football team. And they're 2-4 and 2-3. They could go 2-4. They could be 3-3 by the end of the Sunday night. And I'm pretty sure they want to be 3-3. Now, the Detroit Lions will have something to say about it. And I'm sure Dan Campbell will have that team ready to go because their primetime record is electric. So this game on so many different fronts is like, okay, the Chiefs could beat you here. The Lions could beat you here. The Chiefs could beat you here. The Lions could beat you here. And what it's going to come down to in the broad scheme, and this comes down to every football team. Like every football team it comes down to these critical things, okay? Do you execute your plays? Do you make the plays necessary to win the football game? And do you make the most of the big plays? The big plays could come in the rush game for Detroit. They can come in the pass game for Kansas City. And I look at these two teams and I look at their defenses and I think, okay, there might be a little bit of a chance. Now, I do like this statistic by the Detroit Lions. The Lions defense has been effective when rushing 4 or fewer defenders, generating pressure at 38%. That's the 4th highest in the NFL. And then to take that a step further, and this is why I brought this statistic up at the end of the podcast, because this is an X factor in terms of what you're talking about with these two teams. The Lions have defense has posted a missed tackle rate of 6.9% this season. That's the lowest in the NFL and would be the lowest mark by any team since at least 2018. So I want you to understand how things are going to go, okay? This is going to be a tough game. This is going to be a really, really tough game. And when I look at like the statistics of these two quarterbacks against each other, when I look at the game picks from the NFL.com, when I look at, Jared Goff against the blitz is electric and Steve Spagnuolo likes the blitz. What I come away with in this game is there's going to be X factors. And there's going to be X factors, and I think these guys are going to be the X factors. For the Kansas City side, I think the biggest X factor for the Kansas City Chiefs by far, is Marquise Brown and Travis Kelce. I think if they can get going, they could be really dominant. And if Xavier Worthy does play, he could pose a threat because of his deep threat ability. Okay, and we did that that statistic with the passing. The Chiefs' deep passing is 10th in the league. They're long passing, which I don't know the difference between long and deep, but the long passing is the number one. So the advantage does go to the Chiefs. So the X factor for the Chiefs is the long, deep pass or the big play. I don't think they're getting a big play with Isaac Pacheco. I don't think they're going to get a big play with Kareem Hunt. They might get a big play with the legs of Patrick Mahomes because he has shown an ability over this season to really hem in on being a rushing quarterback. He leads the team in rushing. So that's an interesting dynamic there. And for the Chiefs defensive side, I think everybody worries about the offensive line in Graham Glasgow. And if Chris Jones has a day, he could really upset the apple cart. Okay. But I think that the weapons that Jared Goff has, he could really play it apart, right? And so that's what you're going to see with there. And so I'm very, very interested to see that. Okay. So that will be very interesting. For the Lions offense, I think the X factor is going to be Jahmyr Gibbs because I told you a statistic earlier in the podcast about Nick Bolton and coverage. If Jahmyr Gibbs can make a play in the reception game, that would be huge. That would be absolutely huge. And if they put a linebacker on Sam Laporta, he can also be an X factor. But I think Jahmyr Gibbs, as in terms of an X factor, the way that he runs and the way that he plays, he could really be an X factor for that offense because we talked about it. Their defense is pretty good. They're not going to give you much in terms of how they do things, but their rush defense has been categorically awful. So the Detroit Lions have a shot to get them on the ground, and if they do, that's an advantage to Detroit because now you're going to force the Chiefs to blitz and try to, put a hat on a hat and try to stop them. And I would love to see if the Detroit Lions got their run game going, and for the first time, Jahmyr Gibbs gets going, and this would be a perfect time for him to get going because he could be the biggest X factor. Now, when I look at another X factor for the Detroit Lions, when we look at the passing game, the short routes, the intermediate passing routes, that's St. Brown. That is all St. Brown. And the Detroit Lions rank number 1 in that category, and the Chiefs rank 18th in that category. Okay. The reason that I brought up Jahmyr Gibbs is a X factor. It plays into this statistic right here. Passing versus play action. If Jahmyr Gibbs is getting some good ground on, making some good runs, you start doing the play action. The Chiefs defense is 32nd in the league, and the Detroit Lions offense is first in the league. So again, this is the matchups and the matchups of the matchups, and this is what's going to win the football game. That's what's going to win the football game. So I'm very interested to see how this game goes about. I'm very interested to see how the Detroit Lions play Kansas City. Obviously, tomorrow we'll drop a video about the injury report. We hope that there's good news. Hopefully, Taylor Decker plays and all that jazz. And I will have a couple of YouTube videos. Now, we are going to have a separate YouTube channel for the Detroit Lions News podcast, so you can watch podcasts on the YouTube and not have to deal with all the YouTube clips that you get on GC Sports. So we will do that. But that'll be coming in the future. But this game is going to be very fun to watch. And I just want people to enjoy it, enjoy the ride. This is going to be, if you watched the Tigers game yesterday, it's probably going to be something like that. So we'll see what happens tomorrow with the injury report. And if you're listening to this on a Saturday or even Sunday morning, injury report is going to tell you a lot. Like I said, the key injuries that I want you to pay attention to. I want you to pay attention to the injury of Maddox being limited, Brian Branch being limited and going for MRI. Kirby Joseph did not practice. Taylor Decker did not practice. We know Terrion Arnold will probably not play. He's going to be out for an extended period of time, but that's the issue that I see right there. So we will see you guys in the next podcast. We talk more Detroit Lions football here on JC Sports, Detroit Lions News podcast, and wherever you get your podcasts. Thank you for listening, and I'll see you in the next video, the next podcast as we talk more Detroit Lions football.